Matthew Tkachuk has returned to form since late December, earning him another star of the week. We discuss his on-ice production per 60 minutes and ask the question, is Anton Lundell going to be used as a trade piece for the upcoming deadline?
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Tuesday, February 20th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're to your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. So, Florida Panther fans, this is another episode with various topics connected to this one, as Panthers are winning. The trade deadline is coming up. This team is a contender, which we like to hear. And, still very well in control of their destiny, with, even though the Boston Bruins won in a shootout on Monday against the Dallas Stars, still very much in control for the top of the Eastern Conference. And don't look now, but the Vancouver Canucks lost 10-7 against the Minnesota Wild, which makes the Panthers 4 points behind the Canucks with 2 games in hand for the top spot in the NHL. So I know those people who don't want the Panthers to win the President's Trophy are sweating right now as when they hear that part, as far as that. But as far as the Florida Panthers side of things and the world of the Florida Panthers, as far as news, Matthew Tkachuk has been named third star of the week. Another star of the week, his second one in the last few weeks, the last one coming right before the All-Star break. And the elite company that he's in, with Connor McDavid with 10 assists in 3 games as the second star, and Austin Matthews, who scored again on Monday against the St. Louis Blues. And I spoke about this on X, talking about how the fact that Reinhart is not going to win the Rocket Richard race could put the leverage into Bill Zito's hands. And with the scoring pace that Reinhart is currently on, which is incredible, it's high 50s, low 60s, it doesn't give Reinhart as much negotiating power when it comes to his upcoming negotiation this summer. And who knows, we could very much well see one right at the trade deadline as well. He could sign at any moment, but it looks like that it's going to be a patient approach from Reinhart. So don't expect anything as far as pen to paper as far as that. But going into Matthew Tkachuk, third star, 8 points in 3 games, and just the impact that he's had since we've talked about the points since December 23rd, which was a matinee game against the Vegas Golden Knights. But since December 29th, this is something that Bleacher Report tweeted, which in 21 games, 15 goals, 25 assists, and 21 of those 25 assists are primary. And the biggest difference as far as what Matthew Tkachuk has done on the ice is the amount of goals that he's been not necessarily responsible for, but on the ice for. During that stretch, the Florida Panthers have scored 85 goals, and Tkachuk has been on the ice for 53 of them. And if you're wondering where his points stand as far as that stretch, 40 points in that stretch. So even those 13 goals that he doesn't touch the puck, when he's on the ice, he's making an impact, whether it's screens out in front, battling in the corners on battles, getting the puck down low and distributing it back up high, even if it results in a shot from the point and a few bodies going around, he's still making an impact on the play. And let's put this into more perspective as far as what Bleacher Report posted the other just the other day, as in Monday, as far as that. The 53 goals and the amount of minutes that Matthew Tkachuk is doing this in too. 384 minutes. And to do your calculation, I already did it for you, Matthew Tkachuk is playing 18 minutes per game. And the goals per 60 in those 18 minutes is 8.3 goals per 60 minutes. Just reading that out loud when I first read it and now repeating this on this podcast, I can't believe the words I'm uttering out loud about the impact that Matthew Tkachuk has had in the last month and a half. Now it's approaching a month and a half now. And he just keeps scoring. He just keeps going and keeps finding the open teammate as well. Like I said, 21 of those 25 assists are primary. And let's not forget that Matthew Tkachuk logs a whole bunch of minutes as far as special teams, as far as power play, especially. Mostly on could spend time on both units as well. Is third as far as forwards as time on ice because he doesn't play as much penalty kill as Reinhart and Barkov, but still very much up there. So the 8.3 goals per 60. Okay, that's a full 60-minute game if he were to play and not come out of the ice at all for a single line shift as well. So what does the 8.3 goals look like as far as his 18 minutes per game impact? And I also did this math for you guys as well. And his impact while on the ice, not necessarily point-wise, but on the ice since December 29th is 2.53 goals in those 18 minutes in this 21-game stretch. So in the last 21, at least 18 of those minutes, you're getting 2.53 goals somewhere in that almost two-thirds stretch on the ice. And with incredible, too, with where the Panthers goaltending stands as well, along with that, because the Panthers are doing that thing again where they're getting the timely goaltending, killing off penalties. We kind of saw that after round one, where they really were into their structure as far as defense and special teams. And we're really starting to see, and we started to see that really from late December on. And Sergei Bobrovsky, in his last 6 starts, 2 goals or less in all of them, including one of them with a shutout. So you're getting this from Chucky. Reinhart is scoring at will on the power play and in all situations. He leads the team in shorthanded goals too. So let's not forget that. And at least 2.53 goals in Tkachuk's 18 minutes on the ice that he impacts too. So it just goes to show more about the tear and the heater that the Florida Panthers have been on since the latter part of 2023 all the way to where they are right now, which is 1 point behind the Boston Bruins for the top of the Atlantic with a game in hand. So Matthew Tkachuk, man, it feels like that something has just unleashed out of this guy. And like Paul Maurice has spoken about so many times, his defensive game has gotten better. He's not cheating the game for offense as well, so that when you see explosions like this, that it's something that you can appreciate, but also it's a reminder of to the hockey world that he is a top 10, maybe even top 5 impact player in the NHL. And the fact that the Panthers have 2 of them, if you're including Barkov in this, on their lineup, when he gets going scoring wise as far as goals, man, watch out for this Florida Panthers team. I mean, people are already watching out for them as well, but how much more dangerous can they actually get if Barkov is getting more involved in the offense? We see it with Tkachuk. We see it with Reinhart, but what there could be another gear for the Florida Panthers to hit, and that's what makes them ultra dangerous. But in segment number 2, we are going to discuss more about the rumor mill as far as the trades coming up for the deadline and what is out there once again for the Florida Panthers. We're going to talk about the latest name for the Panthers and what other names there could be out there. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $150 if your first bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. Once again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon at FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's also now available on Amazon Fire TV with the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the Fire TV Channels app. Back on this Tuesday, February 20th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Tuesday. So, by the way, the Florida Panthers held their Cats and Cocktails fundraiser at the Fort Lauderdale Yacht Club, which was an invite only on Sunday to corporate sponsors and premium season ticket holders. As far as the impact, as far as the donations from 2022 to 2023, a 59% increase from 2022 to 2023. So I'm wondering what the final numbers would be after this one. And donations are used for veteran affairs, growing the game of hockey, children's health and education, and raising awareness for the endangered species, as we know, is the Florida panther here in our region. But also, the Panthers will be holding a clothing drive on Tuesday, right before their game against the Ottawa Senators, with the Chapman partnership from 5 to 7:30, in the Publix Plaza right in front of the arena. So let's go right into the trade board. And what's the latest as far as the rumor mill? So Jimmy Murphy, who writes for Boston Hockey Now, has spoken about tweeted that the Florida Panthers are really in on Noah Hanifin. And this was a name that a lot of people thought that the Tampa Bay Lightning could be in on based on the opening up of the cap space for Mikhail Sergachev now that he's out for the season. Plus, 32 Thoughts also spoke about this as well, that even though one thing that Boston, Toronto, Florida, and Tampa Bay have is they're not asset rich, but they could be player rich as far as what they're willing to give up, as Tampa Bay has a lot of guys who they signed to long-term extensions after winning the cup as well. Toronto is locked up in forwards and don't have really a lot of depth outside of that, especially on the blue line. Not, and they're looking for blue line help too, so they could be in on Hanifin as well. Noah Hanifin is from Boston. He has voiced that he's wanted to play in the U.S. And Elliot Friedman spoke about how Anton Lundell has been thrown around in rumors this year as well. But let's ask ourselves, does it make sense for you to trade your center for defense when your biggest need is depth scoring? The question is, what's coming back in that trade? Is there going to be some forward depth with it? And more importantly, can you fit it under the cap as well? Because the Panthers are going to have to find a way to get Hanifin's salary under the cap, plus trying to replace Lundell's production if they do, in fact, decide to trade him. And this is a thing for the Cats. They can't, with where they are in their record, as far as that top points percentage in the East, 1 point exactly back with a game in hand. You can't punt on this season. You can't. By the way, I forgot to congratulate Anton Lundell the other day on point number 100. Got his first point against the Tampa Bay Lightning in Amalie Arena, and then gets point number 100 in Amalie Arena as well. So, but again, what's the insurance for third line depth? The thing is, if you make that trade for Noah Hannafin, which Jimmy Murphy said that the plan would be to extend him, that is your Montour insurance and possibly Forsling insurance as well. Because I do think, I can't speak for Bill Zito. If I were to guess, I think Sam Reinhart is priority number one, as he should be. Even if he regresses back to the mean of where he was before this season, you're still getting a high 30s as far as goal scoring as well. And that is worth it if you were to pay Sam Reinhart. But what are you going to replace Lundell with if you were to bring Hannafin in as far as that? Are you willing to risk an older veteran on that third line? And this also sends a message that you are sure that Sam Bennett could be here for a while more as well, as his contract will be up the year after. Him and Carter Verhaeghe's contract are up after the following season as well. Could it be a smokescreen? Could it be for another team to up their offer so they can be more quote unquote asset poor? I don't know. I don't know. I don't play that. I don't play the game that these front offices do to possibly throw smoke screens out there, because sometimes teams make trades not only to improve their roster, but to prevent other teams from getting them as well. And Boston's deep in the blue line as well, just like Florida. So I'm not sure if it makes sense to add. I think the Bruins are looking for center depth. Panthers are looking for winger depth as well. So the likelihood of it being pulled off, very unlikely in my opinion, as far as that. As far as other guy, well, actually, before we move on, Noah Hannafin, he logs 23 minutes a night at 27, 2 years younger than Brandon Montour. And remember, when Bill Zito traded for Matthew Tkachuk, he set the clock over as far as age compared to Huberdeau, which is why we said it at the time, extended their window. 3 inches taller than Montour, 10 pounds heavier, plays on the top power play unit, and had 129 block shots last year. Montour, in his single season record for defensemen, was 73 points. As far as block shots, 93. So you're adding more of what you already do well, as far as not allowing pucks to get on net and making it easier for your goaltender. Do the Panthers need more of that? I mean, more doesn't help, but at what cost as well? And Montour's career high in points before Paul Maurice was 37. Noah Hannafin's career high was 48 in 2002. Let's not forget also, I mean, Noah Hannafin was a top 5 pick in the year that he got drafted, traded along with Elias Lindholm to Calgary, as far as that Adam Fox and Dougie Hamilton to Carolina as well. But he is 2 years younger as well. And that you could possibly reset some type of timeline as if you're willing to give him a long-term deal as well. And left-handed shot as well. You're taking away a right-handed shot and replacing it with a left as well. So right-handed defensemen are not easy to find as well. And you're also telling Hannafin that you are the replacement on the power play too. So, but at what cost? That's the big question that Bill Zito has to ask himself as well. Other players that are as part of trade boards, as far as that, Daily Faceoff put a best fit, most likely, and dark horse. One of them is 25-year-old Jacob Chikrin, who we spoke about this years ago. We haven't spoke about this in a long time, especially when Ottawa made the trade for him. The best fit, most likely, and dark horse, the order for Jacob Chikrin, who is under contract for 1 more year after this year. Florida's the best fit. Most likely is staying in Ottawa. Dark horse is Seattle. He's now in the third pair, but can still create opportunities on special teams as well. And the chances are if the Panthers were to trade for Jacob Chikrin, they would not get the same value that they would get when they originally traded for him. There has been an injury history there, and it helps for the Florida Panthers side of things that his dad, Jeff Chikrin, is part of the Bally Sports broadcast as well. So that could be an incentive that could be a way to motivate the move as well. Vladimir Tarasenko, who scored on the night against the Tampa Bay Lightning, best fit. Daily Faceoff said Florida, most likely Ottawa, and then dark horse is Edmonton. He's plus 13 on a team that is having a really bad season, shooting 2% over his career average, and per his first career, 2.25 shots on goal per game. This year is like a quarter of a shot less, but still getting quality over quantity as far as when he gets the puck on the net. Six-time 30 goal scorer, can get in on the rush, can battle, is a really tough son of a gun as well. So that could be also a target that the Florida Panthers could be looking for. Big opportunity, and maybe something not necessarily expensive. Anthony Duclair is on it. Best fit is New York, according to Daily Faceoff. Most likely Florida, and then dark horse is the Rangers. And we've seen this movie with Anthony Duclair before. So the fact that he got only 15 plus games in Florida towards the tail end of the season after the trade deadline didn't really get an opportunity to get his game going. Maybe this could be a second chance in a reunion with the Florida Panthers as well. He knows the system as well, so that's a really focal point as well when you're looking at it. And I don't need to look up his salary because I remember it from his contract in Florida. It's $3 million. So you don't have to do too much of retaining salary as far as the other side. In fact, you could probably take the whole thing, and there will be no remaining salary as well for the Sharks in that one. So there is that possibility where you can get back that winger debt that you originally traded for because you wanted to trade put Evan Rodriguez as part of your cap and sign him for multiple years, which at the time that move still makes sense as far as the Panthers. And the Florida Panthers will be welcoming in the Ottawa Senators for their second of 4 matchups this season from Amerant Bank Arena, as they will start 4 out of their next 5 games at home. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And you shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, view from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. See the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront so you know what you're getting, that you're getting a great deal before you check out. Buy tickets in just 2 taps. Game Time has deals right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the best place to find last-minute tickets. Find exclusive flash deals, sponsored deal tickets for football, basketball, baseball, hockey, comedy, concerts, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section, and Game Time picks the seats. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Third and final segment here on this Tuesday, February 20th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Tuesday. So, Florida Panthers, Ottawa Senators from Amerant Bank Arena, the second of 4 matchups. It's crazy because when you think about the recent history between these two teams, I mean, let's just go the last 10 games for the Panthers and the Senators, 8-2-0. And think about those 2 losses that the Florida Panthers have had against the Ottawa Senators in recent history. What happened in the first of those 2 losses? It was an 8-2 loss in the 2021-2022 season. What happened? The Panthers, won the President's Trophy that season, and they ended up getting the best record in the league as well after that. So they bounced back after that. And then the most recent one, which was in late March last season, where the Florida Panthers gave up multiple shorthanded goals. And then the very next night was that Paul Maurice rant on the bench in Toronto during a review, which that call got reversed. The Panthers ended up winning. Start of the 6-game winning streak with the Lion King in net. And last visit to Sunrise, a lot of physicality too. A 7-2 Panthers win. Brady Tkachuk ends up in the press box with Keith Tkachuk after. And we've learned over the last few matchups that when it comes to Panthers and the Senators, not only have the Panthers blown them out, but have frustrated them too. And just amount of misconducts, things after the whistle. And I guess you could say that Ottawa doesn't really take blowouts really well, as you can tell. As far as their most recent game, which we're recording this at 11:45 p.m. on a Monday night, which weird to say that at this time there are no hockey games going on, but it is President's Day, so I get it. But still weird how can't check my phone and all the games are final as far as that. But top line, 2 goals from Matthew Joseph, former Lightning, and 1 by Timmy Stützle. Anton Forsberg starts in the front end of a back-to-back, so that means the Panthers are going to see Jonas Korpisalo in between the pipes for the Ottawa Senators as well on Tuesday night. So Panthers are catching them on the second end of a back-to-back. So last meeting, 5-0 shutout victory by Sergei Bobrovsky, which I thought at the time it was the front end of a back-to-back where the Florida Panthers were going into Toronto on the next night. We thought it was going to be Stolarz in the net, and then they ended up switching it as far as that. Panthers score the first 3 goals on the power play, 2 by Sam Reinhart, 1 by Bennett, and go perfect 6 for 6. Let's not forget, that was a stretch where during those 3 games in the Eastern Canadian trip, Panthers go a perfect 18 for 18, which also means that the Panthers averaged 6 penalties during each of those 3 games. And thankfully, that's not a position that the Panthers are always in, because you would just ask for trouble no matter how great your penalty kill is. But that's really what accelerated the Panthers' road penalty kill as far as being the best in the NHL. It's crazy at the time. TJ Smith was still the coach at the time for the Senators. Now he's an assistant with the Los Angeles Kings. And everybody in the game gets misconduct. That was that game as well. Memorable game. Very, very memorable game. But as far as the storylines and all that, as far as the Ottawa Senators, they just haven't been able to be in the news for good reasons as well. And let's go back to them being stripped of a first-round pick due to the carelessness of miscommunicating on Donatov's contract when they got traded to the Vegas Golden Knights. Shane Pinto gets suspended for half the season for things related to gambling, and while he's an RFA, the contract negotiations, so he has to take that 1-year deal as far as like, okay, let's revisit this back in the summer. Oh, they had a returning coach in Jacques Martin, former Florida Panthers coach, by the way, back behind the bench in Ottawa, which is still crazy to believe that Jacques Martin in 3 seasons, he had 0 playoff appearances and still has the most wins in Panthers history as a coach with 110. Just goes to show the poorest history that is as far as coaching with the Florida Panthers, which, by the way, Paul Maurice is at 78. So he would need 33 more wins to break the Panthers' all-time record in coaching wins. So at the beginning of next year, let's say that. Also, a few weeks ago, Ridley Gregg takes a slap shot on an empty net and sticking it to Leaf fans at the Canadian Tire Center. And Morgan Riley cross-checks him right in the face, which I don't mind what Ridley Gregg did, but I also don't mind what Morgan Riley did as well, too. Just not up in the face. If that never landed up high, this isn't even a conversation. It's just a scuffle talking about the unwritten rules, blah, 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 as well, as far as that. And injuries as well. Thomas Chabot has only played 29 games. Josh Norris, he was out a lot of last season, but still hasn't played every single game as well. And Keith Tkachuk, he spoke about the comments that he made last year with the Panthers and spoke about how Matthew suspended him from any media appearances, but he says when it comes to the Sens that he doesn't want to beat them while they're down. I have a little bit of a theory, and you guys can guess which perspective I'm coming from. If you guys, and I'll tell you guys in a second. And maybe it's the whole when there are two siblings, especially boys. Sometimes the older brother does not get away with as much as the little brother does. There's less criticism, there's less consequences when they're growing up, and more strict lessons for the older one. And for the younger one, the older one is a little bit of a test subject. And then the older one, and the younger one, excuse me, now you got more experience from the older one. So when they make mistakes and things are not going so well, you're more patient as well with that and with them as well. So it raised an eyebrow why Keith Tkachuk on TNT last week during the alternate cast did not really lash out on the Senators, but he did with the Panthers. Maybe because the Panthers had expectations, maybe. But also, being honest about the state of the Senators as well. Matthew Tkachuk spoke about how he loves playing Brady, but too bad they can't catch up because the Sens are in action on Monday, but they will have a lot of family in attendance. And I know there's that rule that the Tkachuks, the family members, especially the mom, doesn't want them to fight. But for once, I want to see it happen. They were chirping at each other back and forth as well. But what if they did get into a fight on the ice? It's not in their personal lives. They're playing a game. So I would, and for entertainment purposes only, not only them fighting, but do you guys remember that one song from the first Pokemon movie when the clones are fighting each other? And there's this one song, I'm going to quote it. I'm not going to sing it. It says, quote, "Brother, my brother, tell me, what are we fighting for?" Close quote. And it's the part right before Ash Ketchum gets in front of Mewtwo to try to save the Pokemon and all. And Pikachu starts crying because he doesn't have his trainer anymore, which that would be awesome to see. That would be awesome if that happened, plus that music for that song played. And by the way, if you didn't cry when Ash sacrificed himself and all the Pokemon used their tears to bring Ash back to life, or even human. As far as practice notes, Aaron Ekblad is back in practice for the Panthers. Paul Murray said that he will be evaluated tomorrow, but he should be good to go. Colby Guy did say that Kulikov was checked by a trainer, but there were no other reports saying as far as the status of Kulikov. So he looks like he'll be good to go as well. And during practice today, we saw Anthony Stolarz ripping some one-timers from the top of the circle with his goalie stick, left-handed too, as well. So pretty cool as far as things that we saw as far as tweeted was in practice. Sergei Bobrovsky will be between the pipes. So it's Sergei Bobrovsky versus Jonas Korpisalo on Tuesday night from Emirates Bank Arena. And get your popcorn because this could be another physical one as well if you know about the recent history between these two teams. On tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, it is another edition of Winans Wednesday. Jacob Winans will be back to recap Tuesday night's game between the Florida Panthers and the Ottawa Senators as the Florida Panthers play 4 out of their next 5 from Sunrise, Florida. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steve Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.